Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio. So today, we're going to be looking at the best Blastoise deck ever. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it's Rain Dance. I did a video about Haymaker the other day, I'll pop a link in the description. And after a couple fairly ordinary days, it's become one of the most popular videos on my channel by quite a long way. People seem to like learning about these proper old school decks, and I thought, right, if it's old school decks you want, ladies and gentlemen, well, Haymaker was the number one, but Rain Dance was not that far behind. It was the other good deck back in the base set, although if you like these videos, there were other viable decks, I will bring you them. But certainly when I was growing up around this time, it was Haymaker, and when it wasn't Haymaker, it was Rain Dance. And Rain Dance really is all about Blastoise. It's all about taking advantage of Blastoise's poker power, which you probably won't be surprised to learn. It's called Rain Dance, and what it allows you to do, and we've seen a lot of Pokemon throughout the years in this game which do a very similar thing, it allows you to attach as many water energy as you like during your turn. Now, as an attacker, it's not particularly amazing. Hydro Pump is fine, but you don't really want to leave your Blastoise in the active to be KO'd. You kind of need Rain Dance. Attacking with Blastoise is okay, but really it's all about the Rain Dance ability. So, what are our main attackers? And honestly here, there are two main attackers, and we had to wait until Fossil in order to get these. Blastoise really was an interesting card back in the base set, but we didn't really have the support we needed in terms of having good attackers. And as so many Stage 2 decks then and throughout the years, if you've got a good Stage 2, you need some basics to go along with it. And your main attacker here is Articuno. Now, there's several good things about Articuno. First of all, no weakness. That has gotten rarer and rarer as we've gone through the years. But one thing you'll find is that an awful lot of your deck is weak to lightning. So being able to use a Pokemon that's not weak to lightning and is in fact weak to nothing, that's pretty nice. 70 HP on a basic at the time really was quite good. You're there with Pokemon like Hitmonchan. And then 3 energy, 30 damage, flip a coin if heads paralysis. 4 energy, 50 damage, flip a coin. If heads, it does 10 damage to all your opponent's bench. If tails, it does 10 damage to each of your own bench. And these don't look like cracking numbers nowadays, but I assure you, ladies and gentlemen, back in the Fossil era, they were good numbers to be hitting. Plus, you had the paralysis in there with Freeze Dry. So against something like a Hitmonchan, obviously you could use stuff like Plus Power, but then again, you're talking a Stage 2 deck here. You don't really have the room for stuff like Plus Power. You might play one or two, but you don't have a lot of room for it. But what you could do is just use the first attack, hope to hit heads for paralysis, and then finish off with the second attack. Or maybe the first attack with a single Plus Power. One important rule in Query back in the day, Plus Power attached to your Pokemon, so you couldn't play a Plus Power and then play an Item Finder to reuse it, because if you played the Plus Power, it was attached to your Pokemon. When you played Item Finder, you couldn't grab Plus Power out of the discard, it wasn't in the discard till the end of your turn. The other main attacker we had here was Lapras. Now, we had 80 HP, which is clearly great. You do have a weakness to lightning, which is the same weakness as Blastoise, so you did have to be a little careful against lightning decks here. But you had a couple decent attacks. 1 water energy, 10 damage, plus 10 more for each water energy attached to Lapras, up to a maximum of 30. And then 2 water energy, 10 damage, flip a coin if heads confusion. Now you'll notice that Articuno has paralysis and Lapras has confusion. That really did give you a chance against any deck. The goal of Blastoise was to pepper energy down on the field and just smash to victory. But having both paralysis and confusion as an option really did give you a chance against decks that were hitting you for weakness or just games where it wasn't quite going to plan. Although do remember that Scoop Up was quite prevalent at the time, so your opponent could just use that to reset into a different Pokemon. And they really were the attackers that we used. Now, there was an earlier kind of base set version we'll have a look at in a moment, but when Rain Dance got really good, it was Blastoise with Lapras and Articuno. They really were the Pokemon that you wanted to use. Now, there were a couple of super important item cards that we had back then that we really did need to use as well. Obviously, and we talked about these in my Haymaker video, so I'm not going to go into them in huge detail. Do go check that out. But you've got Bill, an item card that just lets you draw 2 cards. That's pretty good. You've got Professor Oak that allows you to discard your hand and draw 7 cards. That's pretty good. And then you've got Item Finder that lets you discard 2 cards from your hand and search your discard pile for any item card and reuse it. That gives you consistency. Those 3 cards, and this is back in the day where there's no such thing as a supporter card. So you can use any of these as often as you like. Yes, Professor Oak has come back as Professor Sycamore, which is a once per turn supporter card. Yes, Computer Search has come back as an ace spec, which is only 1 in your deck. Yes, Bill has come back as a supporter card. But you know what? Back then, you could just play them all and it really did give you a huge amount of speed. The other card that was absolutely crucial in a deck like this was Pokemon Breeder. Pokemon Breeder is rare candy. Before we had rare candy, it just let you put a stage 2 on top of a basic Pokemon, which is very, very important, because it means you can evolve from a Squirtle straight up into a Blastoise. You'd still play War Turtle, so you could go the old route if you needed to, but it was a great little thing. I mean, it literally was rare candy with a different name, and it was absolutely vital in terms of having the speed. Turn 3 Blastoise might win you games, but turn 2 Blastoise is so much better. It's almost not even comparable here. We also saw energy retrieval, which is very important. Discard a card from your hand and grab 2 basic energy out of your discard pile. This is a deck which relies on having energy. Maybe you've had to discard them early game with cards like Computer Search or Professor Oak. Maybe you've had Pokemon KO'd. Either way, energy retrieval is crucial here just to get that water energy back into your hand, because you need water energy to play the game. And then we also did see Pokemon Trader. Pokemon Trader was for newer players, although not even that new to be perfectly honest with you. It's Pokemon Communication. It's the same as Pokemon Communication. Swap a Pokemon in your hand for a Pokemon in your deck. Sounds cool to me, right? It's just to make sure you get that turn 2 Blastoise. It's a stage 2 deck, and yes, back then consistency was much easier to achieve with cards like Professor Oak and Computer Search, but still you needed that turn 2 Blastoise, and this really, really helped. Now, Bulbapedia have been nice enough to give us an example list here, and you can see that it seems fairly standard, lots of 4-ofs, so that you can just go about getting that Blastoise out as quickly as you possibly can. It seems good to me. Now, people were playing Rain Dance before Fossil came out, but as far as I'm concerned, it's a significantly worse build of it. Now, there was actually a trading card game player's guide, which did talk about the deck, and we've got an example deck list here again found on Bulbapedia, and essentially it's a very, very, very similar deck, but your attackers here are Gyarados and Kangaskhan, neither of which are as good as the options we got in Fossil. If we have a quick look at Kangaskhan here, now Kangaskhan was from Jungle, so it still wasn't even a base set option. It's got an attack, draw a card for 1 energy, quite nice in the early game to get you that turn 2 Blastoise, and then 4 energy, flip 4 coins, 20 damage times a number of heads. Should be a little bit too expensive to work, but the good news is here that you've got Blastoise. And then you could also use Gyarados here. Gyarados was expensive, but again, in a Rain Dance deck, it's not the end of the world. And 3 energy, 50 damage, 4 energy, 40 damage, paralysis on a coin flip. So Gyarados is a pretty good attacker. Arguably a better attacker than Articuno or Lapras, but it's also a stage 1 Pokemon rather than being a basic, and you've got to be playing a 30 HP Magikarp. Bearing in mind Gust of Wind was everywhere back then, and Pokemon like Hitmonchan and Electabuzz could make very, very short work of Magikarp. It was a bit of an issue playing a 30 HP Pokemon, because you wouldn't always get the chance to evolve it up into a Gyarados. Although if you did, you turned into having a grass weakness rather than lightning, so I suppose at least that was nice. It was a very, very good deck, and compared to something like Haymaker that would just take out all your Squirtles using Gust of Wind, it could be a little bit outsped, but it was still a very, very good deck back in the day, and given how many people have enjoyed my Haymaker video, I thought, right, let's go for some more proper old school Pokemon decks. If you like these proper old school Pokemon deck videos, do make sure you drop a like, do make sure you let me know in the comment section, just make sure you go nuts, and you be nice. There is a Misty's Rain Dance deck, and I will happily bring you a video about that if you so wish. But now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for you to share some love. Tell me what you think about this deck. Tell me if you were playing back then. Tell me if there are other cards that you played in here that I haven't mentioned. Drop a deck list down below if you've got one you remember fondly. Just remember to be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. And do check out my other channel, Wassy Plays. There's Dragon Ball and Transformers TCG action. It's fun. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves. Until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.